Okay, shalom everyone. Once upon a time, I got a story to tell you. Once upon a time, the great Rabbi Akiva, one of the great heroes of Jewish history, the great Rabbi Akiva is walking. He's, from the Talmud tells us in Mesachas Brachos 60b, he's walking, and I don't have the copy of the Gemara in front of me, so I'm doing this by memory, but hopefully I'm not making this up too much. He was traveling, he was on the road, and this is back then, we're traveling, he was kind of, I guess, alone by himself, or maybe just, I think he was with one other person. It was a dangerous endeavor. Like, you didn't, get in a plane and just land in the next city. Like, he's traveling. And he gets to the city that his destination. And he checks into the local hotel. He goes to the small town, has one hotel. He goes to the hotel, and what do they say? No vacancy. No vacancy. So Rabbi Akiva said, you can imagine, it's frustrating. What's he going to do? He's going to have to sleep, I guess, like homeless. He's going to have to sleep in the back of his car, on the side of the road, outside of the city. He can't go into the city. They're closing down the city. There's nowhere for him to sleep. So he'll just sleep. He'll go back. He'll just continue on his way, and he'll sleep at the rest stop outside of, at the gas station or whatever it may be. And he says, I guess to his student or whoever it was who was with him, he says, this, I'm not frustrated because this is in accordance to the teaching that I've been taught, Kol D'Ovid Rachmana L'Tav Avad. Everything that God does, L'Tav Avad. He does it for the good. And the fact that I'm going to have to sleep in the back of my car today, don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's all for the good. He had with him, he has, he's sleeping on the side of the road. It's very dark. This is back in the good old days. Like, they didn't have electricity, they didn't have it. He had with him a candle to keep himself so he could see what he was doing. Right? That was his light. Sure enough, what happens? A breeze comes along and it extinguishes his candle. So he's homeless and he doesn't even have a light. What does Rabbi Akiva say? He says, Kol D'Ovid Rachmana L'Tav Avad. Everything that God does, L'Tav Avad, is for the best. Okay? He then, and I'm going to get the story a little confused, but here's the gist of it. He has with him also a rooster, which was his alarm clock, a rooster, or a chicken, or something like that. And in comes, like a lion or something like that, and eats his rooster, his chicken. So, right, he's homeless, his candle got extinguished, and I think it was his chicken or rooster or something like that, gets eaten. And of course, what does he say after his chicken gets eaten? He says, Kol D'Ovid Rachmana L'Tav Avad. Everything that God does is for the best. Okay? He wakes up in the morning and he finds what's happened, that a band of robbers has laid siege to the city and is keeping the entire city hostage. I guess that was a common occurrence back then. And he says, you see, remember what I told you? Kol D'Ovid Rachmana L'Tav Avad. Everything that God does is for the best. You see, look what would have happened. Imagine if those three things that went wrong for me last night, imagine had they not happened. Imagine there was vacancy in the hotel. I'd be a hostage right now. Imagine if I would have had a candle and my light would have been on all night. The thieves, the bandits, as they were coming, they would have seen me on the side of the road. Whatever it was, the chicken would have sensed the bandits. It would have started clucking, and they would have found me. So the fact that there was no vacancy, my candle got extinguished, and my chicken got killed is a manifestation of that principle. Kol D'Ovid Rachmana L'Tav Avad. Everything that God does is for the best. And that's a heartwarming story, and it's beautiful, except that if we stop the story there and just sort of take it on face value, I find it personally, it's nice, it's interesting, but it's not particularly germane to my life. And I don't really accept it as, again, it's true, obviously the Talmud's telling us, but we need to understand the depth of it, because at face value, that's very nice. But I don't know about you, I've experienced real suffering. I've had real challenges in my life, and they don't all have silver linings, as Rabbi Akiva seems to be highlighting. There's a silver lining, or it all worked out for the best. I've had real tragedies in my life, and they don't work out for the best. It's not like in the end, it all worked out. I've experienced loss of loved ones. There's no good in that. That's bad. That's bad. That was painful. I've experienced suffering, and I'm sure everyone in this room has as well. And it's Pollyannish to just sort of say, it's all good, everything is going to be good in the long run. That's not been my experience. And maybe we could we fool ourselves and think that it's all going to work, everything is good. It's not really true. I'll take it a step deeper. Not only is it not only true, it's sometimes a little bit when we say that to ourselves, it's almost like we're masking the pain. It's not such a big deal if, God forbid, someone loses a child. It's not a big deal. It's all going to be great. Put on a happy face. No, it's not. It's really painful. And in Judaism, indeed, we talk about the notion of experiencing pain and not to be disconnected to our emotions. So how do we understand? What is Rabbi Akiva telling us? Obviously, he's teaching us something very deep and very profound. What is the lesson that Rabbi Akiva is teaching us, and how do we understand it? Fundamental question. We talked last week, in Jewish Essentials class number 1, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how do Jews know, how do we know that there's a God? Things to focus on looking at creative design, intelligent design. That's a pretty universal idea of where belief in God comes from. Last week we spoke about why do Jews believe in Judaism? Why do we believe that Judaism is correct? We talked about the notion of, number one, is that we're looking for evidence, not proof. I can't prove it to you, but I can have really compelling evidence that's external to the Torah. And we really pointed out that really the place to start when it comes to any religion is to look at our sacred works, look at the most sacred work, and is there any external metric, is there any external way to say this is, very compelling? And so we went through some of those contemplations. If you missed that class, I encourage you to check it out. It's on YouTube. It will be on YouTube hopefully later tonight on my YouTube channel. Follow it there. Tonight, or today, this morning, afternoon, whatever we are, I want to maybe build on that by going in what seems to be a different direction, but it's actually, in my mind, very connected. Every religion, I believe, really needs to address the following question. And if it doesn't, I would be like, okay, this religion isn't very helpful. And that question is, what am I doing here? What is the meaning of life? Right? People spend so much energy and time, resources trying to figure out what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? If religion can't answer that question, it's pretty useless. Or so if it can't answer that, what exactly is it answering? What is the purpose of life? What did God put? What am I doing here? And number one. Number two, I would point out, if the answer is you've got to, climb some mountain to speak to some guru, some faraway place on top of the Himalayas, I find that also a little strange. Again, that means that God created, we're going to accept step one. God created the universe, and he has a mission for mankind, and for me in specific, and mankind in general, but he only told it to a guru who's on top of a mountain somewhere. That's a pretty weird system. It could be true. It's a pretty weird system. If we take a step back, is that really it? Is the meaning of life something that is not very easy to access? If that is, why would God have done? God can do whatever he wants, but we sort of have to ask ourselves, if we're asking this fundamental question, if religion is supposed to kind of give us purpose, what are we doing here? You would imagine that the answer is pretty straightforward, and it should be pretty accessible. Number two. And then number three, I would hope that whatever the answer to that, whatever your religion is telling you, it's again telling you, what am I doing here? What's the purpose of life? What am I doing here in general and me in specific? That answer better be pretty straightforward. And then number three, I would sure hope it explains a really important question. Why do bad things happen to good people? I don't know about you, but I've dealt with a lot of suffering, a lot of challenges, I've had some real difficult moments in my life. Not only that, I think any reasonable person who's objective, you take a step back, you'll note that we live in a really imperfect world. It's a very imperfect world. Here's what the world does not look like. All the people that do good and who are nice and are kind, they're successful. And all the jerks, they all wake up and step on thumbtacks every morning. Right? That doesn't happen. The world is not set up like that. Well, why is that? Why is that? I would hope that, you could sort of say this is maybe a secondary question, but I would hope that pretty clearly every religion, in what's your elevator pitch of your religion, the elevator pitch better be able to explain to me. Like, what am I doing here? And why is my life, I mean, there's a lot of good in my life, don't get me wrong, but there's a whole lot of imperfection in my life. And by the way, it's not just me, right? I know, well, it's everyone. And this is a really important observation. We'll get to that in a moment. But everyone has a lot of imperfection in their life. I'll almost flip that. There's no one who doesn't have an incredible amount of imperfection in their lives. Is that a mistake? It doesn't seem to me to be a mistake if that's basically a universal. So I would imagine, I would hope, none of us want suffering and none of us want those imperfections, yet all of us deal with them. So I would hope very fundamentally, your religion better be able to in its elevator pitch, better be able to answer that question pretty quickly. And that's really what I want to work. I'm actually going to work with that last question first. That's not going to work with that first, but that's really the title of this morning's class. Why do bad things happen to good people? It's sort of a way, it's sort of a question that I use to introduce what I think is the elevator pitch of Judaism. What is the point? What Judaism, bottom line, Judaism, what is your message? What is your elevator pitch? What does Judaism say? Reduce it in one sentence. Right? And every religion should hopefully be able to, again, not to oversimplify, but basically, what does the religion stand for? What does the religion say? What does God want from us? What is the point? The answer, or the elevator pitch for Judaism, everyone can kind of formulate it on their own. I've come up with my own formulation, but I didn't make it up, because obviously, that would be kind of funny, is that Meth and the last day of 2025, he came up with the elevator pitch for Judaism. Like, what have they been doing for the last 3,000 years? And the answer, of course, is it's found in many, many sources. As a matter of fact, I would say it the other way. I don't think anyone disagrees with this. This is a very, very fundamental. So I don't know if anyone's kind of used it in the same words that I'm about to, tell you. But it's a universal. As a matter of fact, it's probably famously put forward in the Mesilas Yesharim. We quote Mesilas Yesharim all the time. What was Mesilas? Mesilas Yesharim is a book written in Hebrew. Mesilas Yesharim translates into the path of the just. Mesilas are the paths. Yesharim are those who are straight. In this sense, it's like a metaphor of the just, of the correct, something like that, the correct path, or of the people on the correct path. Mesilas Yesharim, it's one of the most classic works in Jewish ethics and philosophy, written in the early 1700s by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, writing in Italy. He's often known by his acronym, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, Ramchal, Rabbi Luzzatto. And in chapter 1, he really starts off chapter 1, and again, he's writing in the 1700s, and the reason why it's such a popular book is probably because of chapter 1, because he just was able to distill it using language that, again, it's universally accepted. This is Judaism. There's no secrets here. This is pretty universal. Not pretty. It is universal. But he just is able to distill it into like 2 paragraphs that are very helpful, and then I'm going to reduce it farther and give it sort of an English spin and put it into an elevator pitch. That's what we're going to do today. And then we'll hopefully get back to our story of Rabbi Akiva, and hopefully you'll see, we'll break it apart, and then we'll hopefully answer why do bad things happen to good people. We'll get to that. We'll get back to that pretty quickly. And Rabbi Luzzatto begins his, sort of with the pre-paragraph, paragraph 1. He really points out, this isn't just like some interesting question. It's the foundation. And the foundation of Judaism, you better have very clear. Yesod HaChasidus v'shorish havoda hatamima. The foundation of Judaism is she'izbar eitz al adam achavasa ba'olamo. A person's got to really figure out, what am I doing here? What's the point of my life? What's the purpose of mankind? Not just in general, but be'olamo, in my world. What does God want from me? What does God want from all of us in general? But from me in specific, and what, so where should I be aiming towards? What should I be putting all my hopes, my aspirations, all my energy, all my focus, all of my resources? What does God want from us? What is the point? What is the religion? And here he lays down to us, I'm going to read his words in Hebrew because it's just so powerful, and then we'll unpack it. He says, Hine ma shehoreinu chachamenu zal, what our sages have taught us. Sha'adam lo nivra el asaneg al Hashem v'lahenos meziv shchinaso. Man was only created to rejoice in God and to benefit from the splendor of his Shekhinah, of his divine presence. We are created to connect to God and to enjoy that connection. It's the greatest satisfaction. It's the greatest experience is to connect to God. Great. How do I do that? I'll tell you. The place, the way you connect to God, guess what? It's not in this world. It's in Olam Haba. It's in the world to come. God created Olam Haba, the world to come, for this purpose. But the only way to get there is through this world. This is alluded to in our sages, what our sages tell us. This world is kind of like a hallway to the palace. The palace is the world to come. This world is just a hallway. You walk through the hall to get to your destination. Terrific. Perfect. So what do I do to get to that? So I got to live in this world, but what do I do in this world? The means to get to that goal, it's by doing the mitzvahs. You can only do mitzvahs. We do mitzvahs in this world. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Judaism for You 101. I will give you a different elevator pitch. I'm going to bring in a few other ideas, but here's your elevator pitch. You ready? Here's Judaism. Here's Judaism in a sentence, and I'm going to break it down into 6 component parts. Do what's right and avoid what's wrong. Do what's right and avoid what's wrong, as defined by the Torah, no matter what the situation, so that in the world to come, you enjoy the satisfaction of the good choices and the responsibility for the bad choices. That's Judaism really right there. Do what's right, avoid what's wrong, in all situations, is defined by the Torah, so that your soul, which lives on forever, in the world to come, enjoys all the satisfaction of all the good choices that you've made, and will have to deal with all the negative consequences of the not such good choices that you've made. I want to break this down just a little bit. Judaism talks about the soul. You've heard that word a lot, soul. And if you come to the explanatory service, we have prayers, Elokai, Neshama Shanasati Bi Tahorahi, my Lord, the soul that you've created within me is pure. The problem with the word soul, it is the correct word, and we will use it, the word soul, but it's worth, one of these, let me actually just, I'm not going to write it down. It's going to take me too long. But do what's right, avoid what's wrong is defined by the Torah in all situations, so that your soul enjoys in the world to come, which lives on forever, enjoys the satisfaction of its good choices and deals with the consequences of the not such good choices. Let's talk about the soul for a second. We use the word soul. The problem with the word soul is we all have strange connotations or strange definitions of what the word soul means. And oftentimes, to some of us, maybe all of us, and to some degree, or none of us, we sometimes view the word soul as this external thing. There's me, there's Nachomet, and I wake up in the morning, and then there's the soul. And we externalize it. Almost like, remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, and Bugs Bunny or whatever, they're thinking about, he's debating, should he do what's right and do what's wrong, and he's got the little Bugs Bunny appears on one shoulder, and he's like this angel, and then he has the devil on the other side, like these external things. You hear these concepts of souls. You may have heard in Judaism, Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. We hear these words, and the problem with these words is we externalize them. We have this Yetzer, there's me, but then there's my Yetzer Hara, there's my evil inclination, there's me, and then there's this soul thing. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, writing in the late 1800s, in the 1870s, 1880s, probably 1870s, maybe even earlier, 1860s, he writes in one of his first letter, I'm going to build on it, but essentially his argument is these ideas, these concepts of souls, Yetzer Hara, evil inclinations, good inclinations, these are true things. He's not trying to amend any of the language. They are true, but the problem is sometimes we externalize them. And he says, always remember, your soul is you. It's not external. Your Yetzer Hara isn't like this outside force. It's you. A good way, by analogy, I remember when I was in high school, in 12th grade, I took a class in psychology, AP psychology. And I remember we got to Freud. Do you remember Freud and the id and the ego and the superego? And I remember that I was, I guess, still need a little bit more development and maturity. I remember being like so confused. Like, I'm like, okay, yes, but where is my id? Can you please point to my ego? Can you please point to myself? Like, where is that? And right, I never got it until I went to college. I ended up majoring in psychology. And of course, when I was a little older and more sophisticated, I was able to understand there is no like, this part of your brain is the id. That guy over there is the ego. Over there is the super. That's not how it works. It's you. It's you. It's your mind, your consciousness, your awareness. Just understand you are complicated and you are layered. And we could sort of, when we talk about your awareness, your consciousness, who you are, realize there are different pushes and pulls within you. But that's your consciousness, your awareness. There's ids, egos, super egos. It's not like three parts of who you are. It's one person. It's like the guy who's sometimes sad. Sometimes I'm happy. Sometimes I'm angry. Sometimes I'm jealous. It's not different part. It's all me. I just experience a lot of different things. Recognize your soul. That's when we talk about your soul is you. It's your consciousness. It's your awareness. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, who do you see? That's your soul. The guy who likes the Redskins and hates the Cowboys. The guy who likes vanilla more than chocolate. The guy who has all his fears, ambitions, hopes, dreams, aspirations, jealousies, cravings, rages, all of my emotions. That is your soul. And that soul, you, the essence of who you are, guess what, folks? It's eternal. You live on forever. Obviously, our bodies, our physicality doesn't. We're on the clock here. But your soul, who you are, it's not some external thing. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Salanter, he uses the word anochi. You know what the soul is? Anochi. It's the self, the me, the I. Who you are, that lives on forever. So recognize, maybe, Richard, can you give me 1 minute and then we'll get to your question. So that's who your soul. Recognize your soul was not you, and by soul means you, your awareness, you, all of your cravings, you were put on this world not for this world. You were put on this world to get to the world to come because you live on forever. And it's in the world to come, in the olam haba, in the world to come, that's where that soul, which is you, it's not some external part of you, it enjoys the satisfaction of all the good choices that you've made and has to deal with all the ramifications of the not such good choices that we've made. Meaning, God put us on this world, as Rabbi Luzzatto pointed out, it's a way to get to the world to come. It's a way to get to olam haba. And the only way to get there is by doing mitzvahs, by doing what's right and avoiding what's wrong. Here we get to another part of that elevator pitch. Well, right and wrong, the problem is we like to think that there's like an objective right and wrong. Be a good person. How many times have we heard, be a good person? I'm just going to be a good, Rabbi, doesn't God just want me to be a good person? Of course the answer is yes, but I've got some news for all of us that we don't like to think about, or we like to say, it's an extreme, but it really highlights a point. You know who thought he was a really, really good person? Adolf Hitler. Do you think he thought that he was a diabolical monster? No, he thought he was a good person. Because guess what? If we just use our own intuition for what's right or what's wrong, realize I'm using it as an extreme example, that everyone thinks that they're right. Everyone thinks that they're dead, but I'm living an appropriate lifestyle. He thought what he did was right. Number one. Number two, isn't it interesting? No two communities, no two people on their own have the same definition of what's correct, what's right. I'm just going to be a good person. Yeah, or isn't it interesting? No two communities, no two societies, no two cultures have the same definition of what's good. Different cultures, emphasize different things, and what you think is good, the next guy thinks is bad. So does that mean that there's this subjective definition of a good or bad? Recognize good and bad, what you think be a good person is very, very subjective. Now, again, I'm using a bit of an extreme, but it's not as extreme anymore. There are certain things which I think we all recognize are universals. Don't kill for no reason. Don't steal. Things like that. We sort of understand things. There are certain things which are pretty down the middle of the fairway that, Hitler's aside, most of the population kind of agrees on. But realize when you get to more subtle things, and not even so subtle, different societies emphasize different things. If we're left to our subjective definitions of what's right and what's wrong, recognize there's no agreement on that whatsoever, and recognize, sort of have the humility of thought to recognize we're pretty bad at on our own, using our own gut instincts of what's the definition of right and what's wrong. Let's have the humility to realize, first of all, we're not going to all, not only are we not all going to agree, there are going to be wild differences of opinion. So yes, some basic things maybe we'll all agree on, but once you get a little bit off the middle of the fairway, you're going to have wild different opinions. So the definition of right or wrong is not subjective. That's why we believe in the Torah, which we pointed out before our class started. We'll have our next unit, we'll talk about what the Torah is and how that works. But we believe fundamentally, do what's right and avoid what's wrong, not just based on your own definition. It's going to be based on the definition of an objective standard, meaning God, we're going to presuppose class 1, God created the heavens and the earth, and then presuppose class 2, that God gave us the Torah, He gave us a manual. Well, in that manual, He says, no, don't just come up with your own definitions of right and wrong. I'm going to lay it out for you pretty clearly, at least theoretically pretty clearly. Here's my definition of what's right and what's wrong. And by the way, realize it might not square with your human, subjective definition of what's right and wrong. And have the humility to realize sometimes we get things wrong. And sometimes what we think is right is actually wrong. But there's actually an objective standard. So do what's right, as avoid what's wrong, as defined by the Torah. So that your soul, which lives on for eternity, lives on for eternity, enjoys the satisfaction of all the good choices that you've made, and has to deal with the ramifications of the not such good choices that we've made. Let's focus on those last 2 points. We believe deeply in a notion of the afterlife, of the eternity of the soul. And it's in the olam haba, it's in the world to come. That's where we actually enjoy the satisfaction of all the good choices that we've made. And number 2, yes, there is people that ask Rabbi, Jews don't believe in hell, right? So I don't know where that comes from. Of course we do. Now, it might not be that Christian version of hell, which I think is a little confusing, but it is a place that you don't want to be. And it's not either or, it's a process, it's an experience. A better way of understanding it is realize your actions have accountability. Exactly what exactly does that look like? It's not that Christian version or that Islam, like this, a very physical thing. It's all very, very spiritual, but it's a process that we want to avoid. There is ramification, as Rabbi Salanter points out. Always recognize the right, crime will never pay. Right? If you have a system, any legal system where crime pays, so that's a pretty dumb system, right? If by robbing banks, if you steal $1 million, the only punishment is you have to give back $100,000, right? So crime pays. You should rob every bank, because you rob a bank, you're going to walk out with $900,000, right? Obviously, crime won't pay, which means it's a system of responsibility. It's a system of accountability. But there was a step in the middle which is really important. Do what's right, avoid what's wrong, is defined by the Torah, so that your soul, which lives on forever, enjoys the satisfaction of all its good choices, avoids the ramification of all the not such good choices in the world to come. But there was one step in the middle. Avoid what's right and do what's right and avoid what's wrong in all situations. In all situations. And here's a really important point. This is really the next paragraph that Rabbi Luzzatto points out. I'll give you can I tell a story? It's one of my favorite. I've told this story. It's one of my favorite stories. I didn't even review all the details, so I'm going to forget it. It's a story of, I think I mentioned it not so long ago at the explanatory service, so it's a repeat. It's a story of really one of the most remarkable presidents, William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft. He was a remarkable president. His story is really, he was born in Cincinnati, if I recall. His father was actually, Adolphus Taft was a Secretary of State under like Cleveland or something like that for a little bit. He grows up in Cleveland, Cincinnati. He was appointed, I think, under Cleveland's administration. Or Grant? I don't remember. In any event, he had a pretty happy childhood, was a smart kid, went to law school. He was, a bigger guy, but he was a jolly kind of fellow. He had a great personality, people all around. He was a very likable guy. And he becomes an attorney. He becomes appointed as a judge. He's still in his 20s. I forget under whom, McKinley appoints him. Is it McKinley? No, it's before McKinley. Someone before McKinley appoints him as the Solicitor General. He's like 32 years old. The Solicitor General, just so you know, the Solicitor General is right? You have the Supreme Court. The Solicitor General is whenever, a lot of times the Supreme Court hears cases against the government in the United States. Who's the attorney for the government? That's the Solicitor General. The Solicitor General is the attorney that represents the United States in front of the Supreme Court. That's a big boy job. So he's like 31 or something like that. He's the Solicitor General. He goes from that, he then gets appointed, I'm going to forget something, he's appointed the governor of the Philippines, which was a huge job. He then gets appointed Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, then becomes President of the United States of America. A remarkable career, just a remarkable life story. By the way, after becoming President of the United States of America, people forget that Taft ended up actually being Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He was the Chief Justice for about 12 years. That was really his dream job. He really always wanted to be on the Supreme Court. Terrific. Taft, an amazing president. Can anyone in this room tell me anything about Taft? My guess is no. My guess is there's nobody in this room that knows anything about William Howard Taft. Couldn't tell me a thing about him. And remember when I gave this class it was a few years ago when I first gave this class, I went back to one of my, for those of you who know or don't know, a million years ago in a different lifetime, I taught AP American History. I was a young rabbi. I had just become a rabbi, and for my master's degree, I needed to teach for a year, and I love American history, so I taught AP American History. And actually, a couple of my students who I taught they're no longer little kids. They're actually, men and dads, and they actually live, a couple of them, if you know Sruli and Ailey Brigida, shout out to Sruli and Ailey, they moved here, they actually live here in town. They live here in Vegas. So I went over to both of them separately, they're twins, and I asked them, I said, don't, just answer the following question. Don't worry about what the background is. What do you remember from our class in American history, AP American history, what do you remember about President Taft? The bathtub. Everyone remembers the bathtub, which isn't true. The bathtub. What's the bathtub? The urban legend goes, William Howard Taft was your biggest president. He was 6'6", and at his biggest, he was like 350, right? Rod, he could have been an offensive lineman. He's a big dude. Big dude. And the story goes that when he was in the White House, he got stuck in the bathtub because he was so big. That's not the true story. The true story is because he was so big, they had to install a extra large bathtub for him because he was such a big guy. That's the story. Terrific. And I remember, and I told my students back then in AP American History, my goal in that class, I just wanted them to do well on the AP. That was goal number one, and they all, Baruch Hashem, they did well. Number two, if you have a general appreciation for American history, great. But if you forget everything, that's also fine. I don't care. I'm just trying to teach so you guys do well on the test, and it was fine. If you're inspired, hopefully you'll be inspired. Terrific. And I remember when we taught, the day that we taught about William Howard Taft, I remember telling them, here's what's going to happen, because this is the tradition in AP American history. This tradition goes back generations, is that we talk about all the things that we talk about, and you're always going to get, you get to President Taft, you're not going to remember anything about him because it's fairly, whatever, but you're going to remember the stupid bathtub thing. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, 15 years later, that's all they remembered about William Howard Taft, is the bathtub. Think about that for a second, ladies and gentlemen. He's the President of the United States of America. Not only is he the President of the United States of America, he has arguably one of the most, if not the most, pristine resumes in the history of the world. He did everything. He was a good man, great guy, good guy, pretty well loved. And guess what? No one cares. No one remembers Taft. He's one of the most ignored and forgotten presidents. If you want to try to find a biography of Taft, good luck. There basically isn't any good presidential biographies of Taft. The only place you will find him is because he got into a little fight with Teddy Roosevelt. So you'll see it, and there's a book on Roosevelt and Taft, and it all slams Taft for whatever. But no one cares about him. Isn't that interesting? Rabbi Luzzatto points out, be honest for a second. Look at the world around you. People want to know, why do bad things happen to good people? If the answer, you have to ask, well, wait a minute. Is there a presupposition that good things are supposed to happen to good people? If your assumption is yes, recognize, look at the world around you. There is a lot of imperfection. We live in a deeply, deeply imperfect world. Everyone that I have ever met, I want you to let's do the survey right now. Think about the last 36 months of your life. Think about the last 36 months in your life. My guess is you've had to deal with a major life crisis. Major life crisis. Health, financial worry, a relationship, professional, a loved one. You've had a massive life crisis. Isn't that interesting? It's universal. Everyone has imperfection in their lives. Says Rabbi Luzzatto, echad minei elef, right? It's 1 in 1,000. 1 in 1,000 that oh no, he's got it made, right? We try to think, look at the most successful people on earth. Look at Hollywood. Look how dysfunctional that place is. Look at successful people. We all know, it doesn't take an astute observer to realize the most successful, wealthy, influential, popular, most handsome, gorgeous, all these people have huge, massive problems in their lives. Huge. We all know that's true. And the one guy out of 1,000, President Taft, who actually had what seems to be a decent life, let's assume, and I don't even know what went on, he actually had a lot of complications in his life, but let's just pretend. The guy literally is the president. You can't get any higher than that. He had wealth, he had fame, he had influence, he had everything, right? Guess what? Eventually he dies, fast forward 100 years, he's completely forgotten. No one cares. If we think that we were put on this world to enjoy this world, good luck. Because echad minei elef, good luck. Maybe you'll be the 1 out of 1,000 people be President Taft. The rest of us are going to have to enjoy, or have to deal with a lot of imperfections. A lot of imperfections. And even then, even if you're going to be the most, everything will be great. All your worries and troubles are going to go away. Guess what? Eventually, let's be honest, face your mortality. We are all on the clock, and we're all going to be forgotten. All of us will be forgotten. And that really highlights, says Rabbi Luzzatto, it must be that we were put, any religion that claims that follow our religion and everything will be great in this world, good luck. Follow it, good luck. See if that works. Doesn't seem to work from everything that I've seen. Rather understand God put us on this world in a very, very imperfect world because God tailor-makes the stresses, the imperfections, the challenges that are thrown to me, you, and you. And they're all individualized. They are all unique. And God created you for the singular purpose of you do what's right and avoid what's wrong, as defined by the Torah, so that your soul, in all this individually tailor-made circumstances and challenges, and nisyonos is the word in Hebrew, all situations, they are not by mistake. They didn't happen for happenstance. They were deliberately crafted for you to overcome and deal with and do what's right and avoid what's wrong as defined by the Torah, no matter what the situation, no matter what the challenge, no matter what the imperfection, so that you can make it in Olam Haba, get closer to God in the world to come. That is the point of existence. And you want to know why bad things happen to good people? Now, there are a lot of other answers, and I should just caveat it for a second. There is, on top of all this, there is an idea when we do what's right and we follow the mitzvahs, you are blessed in this world. That is true. You are, I guarantee it, take it to the bank. You are better off doing the mitzvahs. Your life, even in this world, you will be better off. If you have a temptation, and should I eat the cheeseburger, should I not eat the cheeseburger? And you decide, I'm not going to eat the cheeseburger and do what's right. I'm telling you right now, your life just got better, even in this world. But it's hard to see. Number one, it's going to be hard to see the correlation, number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that everything is now going to be great. That's not what it means. It's better off than had you not eaten that cheeseburger. But it doesn't mean that all of your nisyonos will go away. That's not the system of Judaism. The system of Judaism is not do all the mitzvahs and now you're going to be, sitting pretty. Everything's going to be great in this world. People want to know, why do bad things happen to good people? The answer is it's a misnomer to think that if I just do all the mitzvahs, now poof, all of my problems and sorrows are going to go away. It's just not the case. That's not the system of Judaism. Maybe we'll get to your questions in 1 second. That's not the system of Judaism. The system of Judaism is do what's right and avoid what's wrong. Yes, doing the mitzvahs will make your life a little easier. Not a little, significantly better, but to realize God put us in this world so that we can get to Olam Haba, the world to come. That's where we enjoy the satisfaction of the good choices and deal with the repercussion of the not such good choices. If you think about it, it means such a profound idea. I'll contrast it to Christianity for a second. Christianity is one of the, I don't even understand how Christianity works. I'm not an expert in comparative religions, but one of the struggles that Christianity has to deal with is basically you have this idea of heaven and hell. Basically, you make it to heaven. If you believe in the salvation of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you're in. Okay, why am I suffering in this world? Why did today I have a bad day? There's no volition and explanation for the day in, day out routines and mundanities of life. See, it's black and white, in, out. In Judaism, again, we obviously reject all of that, but one of the beauties of Judaism is to recognize every single moment of your life is an opportunity to invest in your soul in Olam Haba for the world to come. Every opportunity, every moment that you're breathing, you can get closer to God. You could do a mitzvah. You could avoid challenges. Avoid sin. Every moment is an investment in eternity. And that's why life is so precious in Judaism. Every moment and every situation and every interaction, every breath that you take is an opportunity to navigate through life, to avoid what's right and to do what's right and avoid what's wrong. You want to know why bad things happen to good people? Because this is not the end of the game. If you believe that this world is the end of the game, you're right. You're not going to find an answer to it. And don't look to Judaism to answer it. And good luck finding it in any other religion. Good luck. You're not going to find an answer. Judaism believes that you were put on this world. There's a far, far, far bigger picture. Let's go back to the story of Rabbi Akiva. What Rabbi Akiva, what he's saying was, Kol mad avid Rahman latav avad. What he was saying is, imagine you're in that moment. You get to the hotel and you say, no vacancy. Right? If the world and your existence is going to end in the morning, and this is your only experience, your soul, this world, next world, no such thing. You have 10 minutes left of existence and no vacancy. Guess what? That stinks. Sorry, it stinks. It's bad. But if you recognize that, let's say even in this world, my life is beyond 10 minutes. There's hopefully a few years, hopefully a few decades. So to recognize when you're stuck in the moment, if all you see is that moment, and we're just going to evaluate good and bad based on what's immediately in front of you. So yes, stepping on a thumbtack is bad. Being kicked out of a hotel is bad. When your candle gets extinguished by the wind, that's bad. But if you realize it's not just about this moment that's immediately in front of me, but zoom out a little bit, so recognize Kol da'avad Rahman latav. Everything that God does is for the best. Now sometimes it's even for the best, even in this world. And your candle goes out. By the way, that's in the long run, it's actually best for you, even in this world. But oftentimes, that's not the case. Oftentimes, when your candle goes out and there's no vacancy, and then your chicken gets eaten, you're actually going to be worse off in this world. But still, the dictum of Rabbi Akiva holds true. Kol da'avad Rahman latav avad. Everything that God does is for the best. Because, again, if we view our existence as the moment we die and it's game over, you could argue with that. But Rabbi Akiva was highlighting, you've got to zoom out from the immediate, what's right in front of you, and to realize there's more left in my life in this world, and beyond that, in the world to come, in the afterlife. And in the grand scheme of things, if we include Olam Haba, the world to come, realize everything that God throws your way, every challenge, every annoyance, every frustration, every tragedy, every calamity, from small things like your candle being extinguished to gigantic things which are inexplicable to us, tragedies and suffering, realize God is putting you through this so you could do what's right, avoid what's wrong in all situations as defined by the Torah, so that your soul, which is you, lives on forever in the world to come, will enjoy the satisfaction of the good choices and has to deal with the ramifications of the not good choices. That's Judaism in a nutshell. And I'll just conclude with this and then we'll take questions. We talked last week about, why did Jews believe in Judaism? And we talked about things, look in the Torah and there are different contemplations. It's my belief, historically, most Jews, I think about my grandfather, for example. If you were to ask my grandfather, Zaidi, why do you believe in Judaism? He might be aware, may have been aware of the arguments that we talked about in Exodus 19, the survival, we talked about Rabbi Yaakov Emden's proofs and his theories, the different contemplations we talked about last week. I believe that most Jews, if you want to know, I don't wake up every morning. What I wake up every morning, I don't think about Exodus 19 and all the contemplations that we thought about last week. That's not what I think about, and I don't think that's what most Jews think about. What most Jews, when they wake up in the morning, they want to know, why do I believe? Why am I doing what I'm doing? It's because of the beauty and harmony, the music of that elevator pitch of Judaism. Do what's right and avoid what's wrong, defined by all, as defined by the Torah, because your soul lives on forever, and it's in the world to come. You'll deal with the satisfaction of all the good choices, and the ramifications of not such good choices. That is a harmony. It's a simple. We talked about going back to where we started. That is a very simple system. Very simple system. There's an objective truth. God stuck you on this world. This world is imperfect. It's in the world to come. Is when you enjoy, and it's you. You're going to deal with all the good and the bad. There's a certain rhythm, harmony, beauty. My sense, again, I'm not an expert in comparative religions. I don't think the other religions of the world have it like such a simple approach that really explains all of that. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm not an expert. But that rhythm and that harmony, I believe, that's why most Jews, it's like, that's so intuitive. There's a certain harmony and a music to what God wants from me and what God wants from each and every one of us. Why do bad things happen to good people? Because we live in an imperfect world. That's the question we all need to ask ourselves. Now, as we mentioned earlier, doing mitzvahs, you are going to be better. There's a whole lot, we could do a whole other class, maybe we should, that you are better off by doing mitzvahs even in this world, but those are secondary things.